What's poppin', hedgehogs? It's me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show, y'all. This is going to be a breakdown for the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, a movie that is surprisingly really good for no reason. Let's just dive into it. When the movie starts with the production credits, we get an animation for the Sega company equipped with a bunch of popular games from Sega's past, including Shinobi, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Puyo Puyo, Virtual Racing, Gunstar Heroes, Virtual Fighter 2, Nights into Dreams, Golden Axe, Phantasy Star, Fantasy Zone, Virtual Fighter, Outrun, Alex Kidd in Miracle World, Die Hard Arcade, Panzer Dragoon, Shenmue, Sonic 3, Phantasy Star 4, Streets of Rage 2, Space Harrier, Sonic Generations, Jet Set Radio, Shining Force, and Galaxy Force, to name a few. And this is paired with a cinematic musical rendition of the Sega theme tune that plays every time you boot up a Sonic video game. And when the words original film come up on the screen during the production credits, you can hear 4 notes from the Green Hill Zone theme music play directly after this. Then we get a shot of the city of San Francisco, California, before seeing Sonic zooming past a Bank of America and 2 CVS's while a power-obsessed Dr. Robotnik chases him in his egg pod, with the egg pod being the movie's adaptation of Dr. Robotnik's Eggmobile from the Sonic games. Sonic is of course played by improv comedian extraordinaire Ben Schwartz from Parks and Recreation, while Dr. Robotnik is of course played by comedic legend Jim Carrey, with Carrey mainly accepting the role because his daughter was in love with playing Sonic games when she was younger. Then this super brief look into the future transitions to Sonic's past on his homeworld on Mobius Island, as Friends by the Hyper Potions plays in the background. This island is faithfully modeled after Green Hill Zone, the first level of most 2D Sonic games, and it's pretty damn crazy to see a realistic adaptation of this level in live action. I mean, it even has the palm trees, totem poles, checkered rock design, and loop-de-loops that Green Hill Zone is known for, with those loop-de-loops likely being why the island is called Mobius Island, in reference to the paradoxical Mobius strip loop. And when we first see Sonic running around in this movie, he runs across a natural bridge that crumbles as soon as he runs over it, another reference to the original Sonic the Hedgehog game, as that would happen to Sonic as well. Then we see a baby Sonic running home to his owl guardian mother figure, Longclaw, who apparently found Sonic at a young age when he was orphaned and abandoned. Longclaw could be an adaptation of the Sonic character Sophocles, an owl that was mentioned in the 1993 Sonic guidebook titled Stay Sonic as the first denizen of Green Hill Zone to ever lay eyes on a young Sonic. But unfortunately, Sophocles never got an actual character model, so the best that we've actually got is this new cinematic Longclaw, who Sonic compares to the Jedi teacher Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Star Wars films. Longclaw tells 3 to 4-year-old Sonic to be more careful with his powers, as there are people out there that want that power for themselves. But Sonic then assures her that nobody could have seen him because of his speed before pulling out an extremely video game accurate yellow sunflower from his quills. However, that little blue dingus was wrong, dead wrong, as a whole squad of armed tribal echidnas would roll up on Sonic and Longclaw before Sonic could even give her his sunflower, with these echidnas of course all being modeled after the famous Sonic character Knuckles, who would not make an appearance in this universe until this movie's sequel. As they surround Longclaw's house, future Sonic's narration says, "With great power comes great power-hungry bad guys," a direct reference to Uncle Ben's famous quote from the Spider-Man comics. And in order to protect Sonic from these attackers, Longclaw gives Sonic her collection of magic golden rings that allow Sonic to travel to different worlds in the universe. This movie's way of narratively incorporating the rings that Sonic routinely collects to gain an extra stock of life in the Sonic video games. And before guiding Sonic to the portal that leads to Earth in the year 2010, Longclaw tells Sonic to stay hidden and to use those rings to evacuate the planet should he ever be discovered. Then Sonic watches his guardian disappear forever as the ring portal fades away, with Longclaw supposedly perishing soon after this off-screen. However, because we don't see this, there is a slight chance that Longclaw could still be alive somewhere after all of these years. However, if the prequel comic to the Sonic 2 movie is to be considered to truly be canon, then it looks like Longclaw did actually end up dying at this moment, which is a huge bummer. But since this is a kids movie, I still would not be surprised if Longclaw showed up in Sonic 3 to surprise her former son. Then after we get the logo for the movie sends us to the fictional town of Green Hills, Montana, 10 years later in the year 2020, as James Marsden's Officer Jim Wachowski sits at a speed trap that nobody is around to fall into. Green Hills is of course named after Green Hill Zone from the video games. Then after Sonic uses Tom's speed gun to clock himself going 300 miles per hour, Tom heads out of his car to find one of Sonic's quills in the grass before Tom is immediately called to address a duck stealing a bagel, something that Tom the Donut Lord will not stand for, leading to Tom driving away just as a car finally manages to drive down the road that he was watching, rudely almost murdering a turtle that was crossing the road if Sonic didn't rush in to save them, with this moment pointing to how video game Sonic's main mission is to save all the animals kidnapped by Dr. Robotnik. Then Don't Stop Me Now by Queen plays as Sonic allows the turtle to experience super speed for the first and only time, with the turtle then hilariously expressing sadness as soon as he's forced to return to a life of being slow as hell. Sonic then returns to his secret pad inside of a forest cave, and it's a pad full of extremely random old stuff, a decision purposely made by director Jeff Fowler to prevent Sonic from looking like a thief. Take a listen.
I mean, the reason for all his stuff in his cave to be a little dated, I mean, I think it would be a little strange if he had an iPad and all this stuff that looked like he was just stealing from people. Like, if it was all secondhand,
right.
It's a little more charming. It's like he doesn't have anything new. He's kind of living with all this secondhand stuff that nobody wants. I just think it makes his situation a little bit more charming, as opposed to just being a kleptomaniac that's just stealing stuff out of people's hands.
And among Sonic's stash of old shit from the past is a stack of his favorite Flash comic books from DC Comics, with the first comic that we see him reading being Flash 285 from May 1980, which sees the Flash facing off against the Trickster, as the Trickster chases the Flash in his fancy new flying machine, something that Sonic would of course emulate with Dr. Robotnik and his egg pod in the streets of San Francisco, with that San Francisco chase scene being a nod to the very beginning of Sonic Adventure 2, which sees Sonic being chased by bad guys in an environment heavily inspired by San Francisco. And Eggman actually being compared to a DC Comics villain is hilarious, considering that Jim Carrey actually played a DC Comics villain in the past when he played the Riddler in 1995's Batman Forever. And shortly after this, we can see Sonic playing around with some nunchucks while wearing a white headband. And on that headband is actually the design of the Sonic the Hedgehog title logo from the original game. Then, as one of Sonic's pink-haired troll dolls watches him play a rather sad game of ping pong by himself, we can see that Sonic has actually used a highway sign for Hilltop Road for his ping pong table, with Hilltop Road being a reference to the 5th zone in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 titled Hilltop Zone. Then after Sonic accidentally drops his pouch of rings, he pulls up his map of safe worlds that he can move to if needed, with the map being full of classic Sonic the Hedgehog Easter eggs. The centermost image of an island is of course Sonic's homeworld of Mobius Island. Then at the very top, we can see the logo for the Sega Saturn console next to an image of a weird looking sun, with that sun having appeared in early concept art for the first Sonic video game. Then next to that, we can see the checkered design of the Blue Sphere bonus stage world from the original Sonic games, not very far from a big ass Chaos Emerald on the bottom right of the page. Then to the very left of Mobius Island, we have the Mushroom World that Sonic is dreading to have to migrate to, with that mushroom world being modeled off of Mushroom Hill Zone from Sonic and Knuckles. But many have also been led to believe that Sonic's disdain towards this mushroom world is a playful dig towards the Mushroom Kingdom in Nintendo's Mario games, as Nintendo and Sega used to have a pretty big rivalry in the past when Sega was making consoles. When Sonic heads directly into the town of Green Hills, he watches Donut Lord Tom help ducks across the street, with Tom calling them Donald, Daisy, and Daffy in reference to Disney's Donald and Daisy Duck, as well as Daffy Duck from Looney Tunes. And right after this, we get a hilarious reference to the internet famous Sonic fan drawing of Sonic as drawn by Crazy Carl, the only human in Green Hills, Montana who has picked up Sonic's presence on their planet. We then see Sonic spying on Tom and his wife Maddie watching the 1994 thriller Speed starring Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, with Sonic even referencing the pop quiz hotshot line from this movie later on while at the bar. And right after this, we see Sonic doing an impression of Sigmund Freud while Sonic mentally dissects his own loneliness before sadly watching Tom and Maddie watch 1988's The Naked Gun, Files from the Police Squad. Then the following scene shows Tom coming home to two raccoons going through his trash, calling them trash pandas like Star-Lord would call Rocket Raccoon in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And speaking of Chris Pratt was actually heavily considered for the role of Tom Wachowski in this movie, and I personally feel like a lot of Tom's lines in this movie were written with Chris Pratt in mind. And one of the first leaked images that we actually got from this movie shows Sonic in the back of a car with Chris Pratt driving as Tom, but Chris never ended up getting cast for some reason. But other actors that were apparently considered for the role of Tom Wachowski include Justin Timberlake, Jason Segel, Michael B. Jordan, Bill Hader, Adam Pally, Jake Johnson, Chris Evans, and Paul Rudd. But anyways, a little bit later in the movie, when Sonic is playing baseball with himself, you can see that Sonic the Hedgehog is actually left-handed, solidifying his place in this universe as a freak of nature. I'm just kidding. If you're a lefty, I love you, even though you write with the devil's hand. But anyways, I really loved how this film uses baseball in this scene, because when Sonic gets upset about him being alone without a home of his own, he starts running around the bases over and over again, mirroring the unstable life that his guardian Longclaw wanted him to have to be safe, going from his home base of Mobius Island to his first base home of Earth, and then moving on to other bases across the universe when he has to, with the Mushroom World being his second base. And after Sonic causes a massive explosion of energy that knocks out the power in the entire Pacific Northwest, US military leaders meet up at the Pentagon 20 minutes later to discuss what the hell even happened, leading them to reluctantly decide to deploy Dr. Ivo Robotnik to the site of the explosion. And while Robotnik is disrespecting Major Bennington and taking over operations at the site, he references the 1952 classic children's book Charlotte's Web and spoils the ending by saying that she dies and leaves a big creepy egg sack, before then comparing his drones to eggs themselves, which was of course a purposeful design choice, as it is a direct reference to how Dr. Robotnik is also referred to as Dr. Eggman in the Sonic video games, with Dr. Eggman actually being the original intended name for the character back when it was first created in Japan. However, when the game was ported to the West, they inexplicably changed Eggman's name to Dr. Robotnik, forcing Sega to have to adopt both names into the Sonic canon down the line. And after one of Robotnik's drones spots one of Sonic's footprints, Robotnik mentions that he was trained to analyze footprint tracks by the Native American Shadow Wolves, with the Shadow Wolves actually being trackers that work for Homeland Security to secure the US-Mexico border from drug smugglers and whatnot. And when Robotnik discovers Sonic's footprint to be something out of this world, he says, "One small step for man, one giant leap for me," a self-centered variation of astronaut Neil Armstrong's famous "one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind" quote that he said before walking on the moon. Then, when Robotnik's drones begin to close in on Sonic's cave hideout, he abandons the cave and flees to Tom's garage in order to safely use one of the rings to go to the boring, gross mushroom world. Not sure why he couldn't do it in the cave, because it would take 2 seconds, but the plot needed to move forward. But then Tom busts in with his tranquilizer gun and shoots the blue demon on sight. But since Tom was wearing his San Francisco t-shirt in preparation for his big move to San Francisco, Sonic accidentally opens a portal to the Trans-America Pyramid in San Francisco before passing out and dropping his sack of rings onto that pyramid's roof. Sonic then wakes up in a cage and quickly asks Tom to be the cop that he always wanted to be and help him out of this life or death situation as Robotnik himself began to approach Tom's residence. However, despite trying his best to hide Sonic, Robotnik would find Sonic's quill on Tom's table and start to whistle Ride of the Valkyries as he summons more of his flying drones onto the premises, a clear tribute to the helicopter scene from 1979's Apocalypse Now. After Tom knocks Eggman out with a punch, Sonic hops on one of his drones and says that he cannot believe that Amazon is going to deliver packages with these things, referencing Amazon's drone delivery service. Then, after Tom and Sonic make a safe getaway, Tom agrees to help Sonic get his rings back before they head to the Piston Pick Biker Bar. And when Sonic looks for a disguise to head inside, he notices that Tom has a pair of sunglasses attached to his sun visor, with a mini flyer for the Green Hills car show right under it. And while this is happening, Tom uses a payphone to call Wade at the police station, with Wade telling him that some guys that reminded him of the agents from the Men in Black movie franchise have stopped by. And after the phone call ends, Wade Wade even asks Robotnik and his agents if they are going to erase his memory like Agents K and J do in those movies as well. And then when Tom realizes that Sonic has fallen victim to his temptation to visit the Piston Pit, he follows in after him, with the bar playing White Lightning by Tennessee River Crooks when he walks in. As Tom approaches Sonic, you can see a biker wearing a Harley Davidson shirt in the background before Sonic says that there is a cover band for the ZZ Top rock band at this bar. And soon after this, Tom then teaches Sonic about the concept of a bucket list before the both of them try to do everything on Sonic's bucket list before he's forced to leave Earth forever. And some of the items on Sonic's list include eating a whole pizza, competing in a sport, finding a genie lamp, singing the national anthem, taming a wild animal, learning parkour, doing a slam dunk, doing a guitar solo, learning a dance, making a crank call, sailing the high seas, starting a bar fight, running along the Great Wall, dressing up like Elvis, and finally, making a real friend. And since Sonic is a chaotic element, he eventually triggers a bar fight like he wanted to in his bucket list, one that Sonic ends by reenacting his own time-stopping speedster scene like Quicksilver in X-Men Days of Future Past. But instead of having time in the bottle in the background like Quicksilver, Sonic manipulates his environment by running around to Boom by X-Ambassadors. Then when the two arrive at their motel for the night, Sonic calls himself the Blue Blur, which has been a common nickname for Sonic the Hedgehog for years. And as Sonic is expressing his inner ADHD at high speeds all over the motel room, you can see a Sonic with a lampshade over his head trying to maintain his balance at the edge of a light on the wall, with that animation being the same one that video game Sonic uses when he's on the edge of a platform. And then, after Sonic rips a fart out of the old Blue Blur exhaust hole, he mentions that he had a chili dog earlier, with chili dogs being one of Sonic's favorite foods ever since it was established in the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon story Bible in February 1992. As Sonic falls asleep to the news anchor on the motel TV, talking about a controversial new coffee bean tax, the anchor then transitions to a story about how Tom Wachowski is an armed and dangerous criminal, a fake story planted by Robotnik to heighten the manhunt against Tom and Sonic. And then the next day, the two drive into California before Robotnik finally catches up to them. And as Robotnik shoots a harpoon into their vehicle, Sonic gets angry at Tom for wanting to leave Green Hills, with Sonic's heightened emotions triggering his super powerful blue glowy powers just long enough to destroy Robotnik's tank with ease. After this attack, when Sonic gets up in a daze, he mentions how he survived because he had a bonus life, which is a nice little reference to Sonic being a video game character. And then, to everyone's immense displeasure, Sonic then celebrates his mini victory by hitting us with the floss, which is one dance move I really never want to see again for as long as I live. And a little later, after Robotnik's tank sends another mini robot after Tom and Sonic, Tom has Sonic take the wheel of the car, to which Sonic says that he feels like Vin Diesel and that it's all about family, Tom, making a very obvious reference to Vin Diesel's character Dom Toretto from the Fast and Furious franchise. However, the chase ends with one of Eggman's robots exploding and knocking Sonic unconscious, forcing Tom to bring Sonic's body to Maddie's sister Rachel's house. And as this is happening, Robotnik begins to experiment on the Sonic quill that he found in Tom's house, with Jim Carrey doing a 100% improvised dance to Where the Evil Grows by the Poppy Family, a song chosen by Jim Carrey himself. And when the power goes out during that song, Jim Carrey is forced to go to a circuit breaker to turn the power back on. And when he does so, you can see a label on that circuit breaker that says Badniks, which is the name that Robotnik gave to all of his robot drones, and also a direct reference to the name of all of Eggman's robot army in the video games. Back at Rachel's house, Maddie wakes Sonic up with some smelling salts, causing Sonic to yell, "Gotta go fast!" before racing all over Rachel's kitchen. Gotta go fast became one of Sonic's favorite mottos when it was first introduced in the theme song for the 2003 animated series Sonic X, a show I absolutely loved when I was a child. And not long after this, Rachel's daughter JoJo gives Sonic a pair of red sneakers, which are designed after Sonic's red sneakers from the video games. Then Tom, Maddie, and Sonic all head on over to the Transamerica Tower in San Francisco, where Sonic finally finds his sack of rings on the roof, only to be quickly confronted by Robotnik in his fancy new red flight suit, which was this film's adaptation of video game Robotnik's traditional red outfit. And during this moment, Sonic calls Robotnik Mr. Eggman for the first time, referencing Robotnik's other name for the video games. Sonic then suddenly throws Tom and Maddie off of the roof to save them from Eggman's rockets. Rockets that Sonic slows down with his super speed while doing his impatient foot-tapping animation that video game Sonic does whenever the player is idle for too long. However, due to Robotnik unlocking the raw power in Sonic's quill, he's able to access Sonic levels of speed, triggering the same race across San Francisco that we saw at the very beginning of the movie. And during this chase, Sonic sees a bus advertising a visit to Paris, which prompts Sonic to do exactly that with one of his rings. And this is of course before Sonic would then teleport himself to the Great Wall of China to scratch another item off of his bucket list before then teleporting to the Pyramids of Egypt. Then Sonic finally teleports back to Green Hills itself as Robotnik knocks Sonic unconscious. However, Sonic quickly comes to when his powers activate to the sound of Tom calling him a friend, the last remaining item on Sonic's bucket list, leading Sonic to use his powers to rapidly bounce on the top of Eggman's egg pod to defeat him, just like video game Sonic does with Eggman's Eggmobile, sending Eggman to the mushroom world that Sonic was dreading to go to this entire time. A mustached man wearing red in a mushroom world sounds a lot like Mario to me. I don't know if that was intentional, but I think that's hilarious. And then after the whole town celebrates Sonic's victory, the scene then transitions to Tom and Maddie painting their house. And as they do so, you can hear a piano rendition of the Green Hill Zone theme playing in the background when Sam Walters, the vice president of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, shows up at their door with an Olive Garden gift card to award the couple for their silence. And during the conversation, Sam Walters refers to himself as Uncle Sam, and would immediately form the Guardian Units of Nations Task Force, or GUN, to address more alien threats in the future, with this GUN task force, of course, famously being introduced in Sonic Adventure 2. This is then followed by Sonic being introduced to his new bedroom in the attic of the Wachowski household, with them even giving Sonic a race car bed just like Sonic had in the Sonic comic books. And then before the movie ends, we get a look at Eggman slowly losing his sanity on the Mushroom Planet, shaving his head and growing his mustache to look a lot more like his video game counterpart. But my favorite part of this moment comes when Eggman tells his rock version of Agent Stone to do some rock reconnaissance, because at that moment, his voice sounds a lot like Dr. Eggman voice actor Mike Pollock. And then, after the mid-credits animation that summarized the events of the movie in the style of the original Sonic games, we get a mid-credit scene showing the arrival of Miles Tails Prower to Earth looking for his buddy Sonic, with Tails being voiced by Colleen O'Shaughnessy, who has voiced Tails ever since the 2014 Sonic animated series, Sonic Boom, and would go on to voice Tails in the sequel to the movie. Thank you guys so much for watching this breakdown of Sonic the Hedgehog 1. You guys are amazing. You guys can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or wherever I am on the internet, but most importantly, follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube by hitting that subscribe button. And hey, maybe even check out the Heavy Spoiler store so that you can pick up some new Heavy Spoilers gear to wear when you're out and about, looking sexy and whatnot. But either way, you guys are amazing for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.